Hey, it's Mike again, here with the Master in the Origin series. So the Master is based on the Range Master boost. That's a single germanium transistor boost that was made in the 60s. Originally like an amp top type thing, but this is put into a pedal. So lots of people do this. It's been a very popular type thing, and it's just a really good effect. I think that's why it's been so popular. A lot of the stuff I've started doing in the Origin series is all just classics that have been used for good reason. So the Master, it's got two controls. You've got range control and boost control, and I'll go over kind of what both of these do, and we'll go over the whole circuit and everything as well. The Master right now is comes in gray and gold, but I'll probably do some other colors down the line here once we get, I think actually all of these are sold out, and there'll be some going to dealers, but may do some new colors down the road as well. So same kind of style, graphics, everything as the rest of the Origin series. On the inside, you've got a different circuit board. On this circuit board, you can see very minimal parts count, just a single transistor. And then you've got some caps, a few resistors, a trim pot. I'll just go over kind of what all that does in this circuit. So the input goes in, and you've got these two caps, silver one and the smaller blue one. And what the range knob is doing is blending between, when it's all the way down, it's just going through this silver cap, which is a smaller value, which is the stock value on a Range Master. Really gives it the kind of honky mid-range that the Range Master is famous for. But it still has that classic sound when it's all the way down. As you start to blend up on the range, it's going to blend in this smaller blue cap, which is a much bigger value, and it'll blend it in parallel. And what that's doing is just it'll increase the low end response. Pretty much between all the way down and about halfway, still got lots of mid-range, but it starts to thicken up and fatten up a little bit. After noon, it starts to thicken up a lot more, and so you get a lot more lows. And all the way up is actually pretty good for just a bass boost, because the cap value is big enough to handle a lot lower tuning. Or if you're just playing low-tuned guitar or baritone or something like that, they can retain a lot of your low end that way. But if you want to cut some of that, it actually works really well. So it's just a really good tone shaper. The boost control, what that's doing is it's changing the voltage potential. So as you turn it up, more voltages leave the circuit, so it boosts the signal. It's kind of like a bias control. You actually can hear it scratch a little bit as you turn it, and that's normal, just because there's DC voltage in the pot. So after that, you've got this little, the bigger blue cap. It's a filter cap, so it filters some noise on the power supply. It was in the original, so I included it in here. It does help a little bit with noise reduction, but it's always best to use isolated power and or a battery. Actually, with this, you have to use isolated power because it's a positive ground. So if you're using it with other pedals that are not positive ground, it's got to be isolated. Just like I think all of the Origin series right now are all positive ground. So, but that does still help filter out some noise, because it's just a single transistor boost that has very little filtering, and just helps reduce some of the power supply noise. This little blue box above that is the trim pot, and the trim pot is just biasing the transistor. So I tend to bias them around 7 volts, or a little bit less. Between 6.5 and 7 is pretty normal for this type of effect, and that gives you, I think, the best sound and feel. But it's a little bit different for each transistor, and You can experiment with that, but it's a little bit trickier to get it back to where it was unless you don't have unless you have something to measure voltage with, multimeter, so that you can set it back to where it was. But it'll just come straight to you as kind of optimally biased with that. This other bigger capacitor, same value, same cap. This one is a bypass cap. So what that's doing, it's taking the value from the trim pot. This is normally a bias resistor for the transistor, and it's in parallel with that resistor, or with the value of what the pot is. And what that does is increases the gain. So you can actually adjust the gain up or down with the value of the cap. When I did the Oculus model, which is based on Rangemaster, but it's silicon, that one I increased the value to increase the gain a little bit to give it more range. But on this one, it's just the stock value. And the next cap, the red one, is the output cap. Both the input and the output caps are designed to keep DC voltage from leaking in or out of the circuit, or kind of keep it out of your guitar. That's how it works for most pedals. Pretty much every pedal has an input or output cap. They're designed to just keep the DC voltages out of your amp, out of your guitar. You can tell if an old cap is leaking because your volume pot will be scratchy, which is not normal. You may just need the input cap replaced. So then you've got just a few resistors down here and then one down here. These two are biasing the transistor as well. The base voltage on the transistor are set with these two. This one on the end here, it is a pull down resistor, so and it's on the output of the circuit. A lot of times you see a pull down resistor on the input of the circuit as well, but what that's doing is taking some of the voltage in the circuit when it's off and bleeding it to ground. And it would do the same thing on the input as well, but I just have this extra little wire right here on the foot switch. That's actually just sending the input to ground completely, not through a resistor, when it's off. And what that does is it takes the voltage out, so you'll have a kind of a differential between the voltage of the circuit and the voltage in bypass, and you'll get a lot of switch popping if you don't have something like that to mitigate that. So the resistor works. It's a pretty high value, and it's just going off of the output to ground, bleeding off that stray voltage. So no switch pops on this one, or most of the good ones you see will have that. A lot of circuits use that, like a Big Muff needs that. Tone benders really don't. Fuzzface doesn't. It just depends on the circuit, but this one definitely does. So that's an added feed modification, I suppose, to the Rangemaster. This one down here is just setting the voltage of the LED that's built into the circuit board. So it's not in the audio path, but it's just there so it doesn't fry the LED when you turn it on. So pretty simple circuit. You're just increasing voltage, and it goes out to your amplifier and increases the gain and increases the volume. But a little extra in the tones with the range control, giving you stock to much fatter and in between. I kind of like it set around here, just a little fatter, but you still get a little bit of that mid-range. The boost pot, I changed the taper from what usually is an audio taper pot, because most of the audio taper pots I found, they wouldn't really start kicking in until about here, and then most of your range was like from here to here. So I just thought this is a linear taper now. It kind of has a better range where it feels like a smooth sweep throughout, and it starts getting loud around here, and boosts up from there. But quite a bit of range and quite a bit of output on these. They have a really particular sound and kind of application too. And what I wanted to do on this video was go through a few different ways to use this. I was having some issues with my phone clipping the audio after I played, so I'm just going to do all the talking first and all the playing second. So, but I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to play the Rangemaster first, straight into my amp, and I'll play it with my Strat with a bridge humbucker, like a low output PAF type thing. The amp is set just a little past noon, so it's pretty broken up already. A little past noon in the volume. It would be very loud at this point, and then you hit the boost on top of that, and it's quite loud. So not ideal for home playing necessarily, unless you have some kind of attenuator. I'm using a Universal Audio aux, and no, I don't have any sound in the room, so it's just going through the cab modeling. If you had something like that, no problem. But I'll show you another way to use this at home. If you were, or if you're gigging and you just couldn't be super loud, and that would be to run it into an overdrive. Preferably something with a flatter EQ response, not something like a Tube Screamer or a Klon. They tend to be a little more mid-focused. Something flatter. This is a Blues Driver. It's pretty flat. Doesn't really emphasize too much. It's a little bit almost scooped, really, in some ways, but depends on how you set it up and what you're playing it through. But with this, it works, I find, really well with the Master to create pretty much the sound of an amp that's being driven by a Rangemaster when you combine the two. That's, I think, a really good way to use it if you, like I said, if you can't be too loud. Otherwise, if you plug this into a clean amp that's quiet, the Rangemaster or the Master, it's just not going to do what it's meant to do. It really needs to have some gain somewhere in the signal. And I'll show you another way to use it, and that will be with my face model, which is based on the fuzz face. With the fuzz face, I prefer the Rangemaster after it. I find that it helps to shape the tone and kind of focus it a little bit more, especially if it has this range knob. It just allows you to shave off some low end and focus the tone a little bit more, and you can boost the signal. So if you wanted to do like a solo boost, you can do that, or you can just run it pretty close to unity and just use this to shape the tone. Also works well after like a big muff that tend to be really scooped, again, so you can sort of focus more mid-range. You could also use it before any of those pedals. Use it before the fuzz face, but I find that it's very compressed at that point, and I don't like it as much that way. But if you're playing into a really clean amp, that might work well. My amp is not super clean. I'll be playing through my Satellite Atom, which is a pretty kind of Marshall-y, boxy type amp. It's a very loud amp, but it loves pedals. It just reacts very differently than a clean amp does. So this into a clean amp would just be kind of shrill volume, and so that's where I think something like the overdrive after it would come in handy. And you could use really your favorite overdrive, whatever you want to try. I would just recommend probably something flatter, like a Blues Breaker or a Timmy, Lightspeed maybe even, something like that, where you're kind of goosing the front of the pedal, and then you can control the volume with the volume on the pedal. But so I'll show you those three ways in just a sec, and we can listen to Master doing its thing. So really kind of going to listen for that mid-range, and you kind of get this excited mid-range tone out of this when it pushes the tubes, or when it pushes the Blues Driver in this case as well. You really get this excited, exaggerated mid-range, and there's a really nice feel to it, which you won't be able to feel, but it creates a kind of a spongy feel. Softer attack, I think, because of the germanium transistor. Thanks for watching, and I hope you liked just getting a little bit of in-depth info on how this works. I'll do some more stuff, and I'll do, people have been asking for kind of explain the difference between SOLA and system tuning and on a Mark I tone bender, and also I'll probably do that video soon, probably next. We've also got to do one for the bend model, just to kind of go through the Mark 1.5 tone bender sounds and how it works and some of the differences on that, between that and a fuzz face. But we'll go ahead and do demos of this now. But if you want to hear or see anything that I make, or questions about anything else, let me know in the comments. I can work on a video on and put that one out there too. So we'll plug in now and get some sounds happening. So like I said, first we'll do just range master into amp turned up, and then we will do master into blues driver amp turned down, and then we'll do face into master also amp turned down. All right, so let's get this done here.